Introducing Joe Turner. Joe is a professional speaker, mentalist, and magician. He has performed at events in the United States and around the world. Joe combines 8 years of corporate experience in training, design, and development, business communication, human performance development, and change management initiatives at Fortune 100 clients with extensive theater experience and magical talents to create magical presentations. This is going to be great. He has been featured in numerous television shows, radio, and print appearances, including Good Morning America, Nightline, and a highly rated feature on CNN Headline News. Tonight's presentation is on mnemonic memory techniques, which are directly applicable to giving speeches and presentations, which is what we want, but also important skills for networking and general productivity. With this presentation, Memory Mojo, please help me welcome Mr. Joe Turner. Take it away, Joe.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. If you're going to spotlight me, I'll be able to see what you see. And hi there. Going to hit the spotlight video.
Is that all you? I think that's you.
Okay. Well, at any rate, hi there. My name is Joe Turner. It is a pleasure to be invited to present for you tonight on the topic of memory. Before we dive into that, I will tell you that I have been doing performance and speaking for 20 years now. It's taken me to 6 continents. A variety of opportunities have come my way as a result of this. I am incredibly grateful for every single opportunity that I have. And tonight I'm going to talk with you about something that's been part of my life since I was a kid, and that is mnemonic memory techniques. And I don't know if you ever felt like your memory, you ever heard that phrase, down the memory hole, like a board like this. And it seems like as soon as you put something into your memory, it's gone. And you try to figure out how you can reach in there and get it back again. I've tried that many times. It seems like the minute that I put it in my mind and I let go of it, it is gone until I figure out a way to get it back out again. And here's the thing, once you learn how to get it back out again, you may find other things inside there as well. So that's just a little fun to share with you. The idea of learning how to use your mind in a new way to put items in and to pull them out at will. Let me tell you, when I was in high school, my family and I took a summer vacation drive up to Vancouver, British Columbia. Now, that's pretty exotic because I grew up in Mississippi. That's a whole continent away. And we got in the car and we're driving and we got to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and the transmission fell out of our van. It was just ugly. You could see the pieces going down the road behind us. And so we were stopped in Steamboat Springs, a ski resort town in the middle of the summer in the 80s in Colorado. Really nothing going on in those days. And our hotel was right next to their library. And being the kind of guy that I am, I went over to the library to see what was up, and they were having a book sale. At that book sale, I bought 2 books that changed my life. One of them was a book called Space by James Michener. It made me want to major in physics. It just really fascinated me, and so that's one I highly recommend. But the other was a book called The Memory Book by Harry Lorraine. It transformed the way that I learned from that point forward in my life, and it can do the same for you. We're going to talk about Harry a bit later. I had already run across his name because he was a magician. And even though I was already into magic, this took me into the world of mnemonic memory training. So tonight, Memory Mojo. Let me share my screen for you so that you can see. Share. Now let's talk about this. This guy, Memory Mojo, powerful techniques for instantly improving your memory. That sounds like a big promise, but it's true. Starting tonight, you can have a better memory at the end of this hour than you had at the beginning of this hour. You can apply it to all kinds of personal and professional tasks. Particularly, we're going to talk about applying it to learning speeches, but really other things as well. Let's go forward to the next slide. The definition of mnemonics. In case you're wondering what this word means, what it looks like, that's how you spell it. This is any system that allows you to remember information better. And you have probably already used mnemonic memory systems in your lifetime. You have seen them in the form of rhymes or acronyms. If you were in school and you took the first letter of every chemical that you had to remember for chemistry or something like that, then you have used this. If you were a piano player, you learned Every Good Boy Does Fine or Great Big Dreams for America. You learned that. Those are mnemonic techniques. Visual cues. We all know what Italy looks like on a map because it's shaped like a boot. That is a mnemonic thing. We're taking something we know and tagging it to something we don't know. So we know that first letter clues, all the Great Lakes, homes, right? Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. So these are the kinds of tricks that we're talking about. But we've often heard of it, but it's not really been systematized. And I'm going to give you some systems that you can apply starting tonight. It is derived from Greek words relating to the Greek goddess of Mnemosyne. So now we're highfalutin. I gave you some history of that. Goes back to Greece. Greece and Rome. So Greece is BC, Rome is kind of C, right? And this goes back to the Greek Acropolis and to the Roman Forum, and the speakers, the orators that would stand there would give speeches that lasted for hours and hours and hours to the assembled masses in front of them in the Acropolis or in the Forum. And we still have a form of the Forum today. If you go to your state capital, there's probably a free speech area where people can go and give speeches. Well, it's kind of that thing. In those days, those orators could give very long speeches with no notes or very few notes, no teleprompters, of course, but they could remember this entire presentation, very detailed presentation, and give it to an audience. And here's the thing, their audiences could also remember the information. They could absorb it as it was being transmitted to them verbally. Why is that? Because they were using systems like the ones we're going to talk about tonight. So this goes back to Greece and Rome. More modern memory systems come to us in Europe. This is in 1491. Phoenix was the name of a book written by a man named Peter from Ravenna, Peter of Ravenna, Italy, who was a lawyer in those days, but he wrote the first sort of codified treatise on mnemonic memory techniques. And there's a little picture, Domini Petri Ravenatis Memoriae Magistri. So there you go, that's Latin for Peter from Ravenna, who's going to teach you about memory. Later on, a couple hundred years later, you've got Shakespeare. And you know, his actors would learn all of these 5-act plays, and they would do them in repertory, and they would have, you know, Romeo and Juliet on Monday and Macbeth on Tuesday and Hamlet on Wednesday. How in the world can these actors remember all of these lines and learn them so quickly? And he's still writing the play. Mnemonic memory techniques. This is Harry Lorraine. I was telling you about him earlier. Harry Lorraine, besides being one of the greatest close-up magicians in the history of magic, which is why I admire him, and I've met him a number of times through that. He's also probably the best known memory expert in the 20th century. There were some before him, there have been some after him, but he's the guy. That's a picture taken from when he was on The Tonight Show. One of the 25 times he was on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. He was on Merv Griffin, he was on Mike Douglas, he was on Donna, he was on everything. And one of the things he would do would be to go into the audience and meet everybody. And at the end of his segment, he would have everyone stand up. And when he called their names, they would sit down. He would go through the whole audience or a whole section of the audience. Very impressive. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's see. After Harry Lorraine, mnemonic memory principles. These systems, all the ones I'm going to talk to you about tonight, operate on 2 major principles. One of them you heard from Dr. Mel. Remember when he was talking about active listening earlier today? Well, that is a different term for the same idea. We fail to be originally aware of information as it's coming into our consciousness because we are so distracted. I'm distracted right now by flashing lights on the screen and stuff going on in my house, and you know, it can be distracting. And that's even in our sort of isolation time. In normal times when you've got media at you and billboards and radio and television and everybody shouting and everybody wants your attention, it can be so difficult to pay attention to information as it first comes in. But training yourself to be originally aware of the information as it comes in is the first principle. And we'll talk about that. The second, creative association. If I had you here in an audience, I could ask you to raise your hand if you've ever heard of memory by association. And most people would raise their hands. Almost all of us have heard of the idea of memory by association, but we're not familiar with strategies and real techniques on what to do. We've heard, well, if you meet someone and their name sounds like a fruit or a vegetable or somebody, you know, that kind of thing, you've tried to put it together in your own mind. But there's never been sort of a step-by-step approach. Most people just don't encounter this kind of information. It used to be taught in school. It used to be taught in public school how to do this, but it's just faded out over the centuries. So what does it mean? We're going to relate two ideas in a creative way. Right now, I'm going to ask you to turn the dial back on your life, you know, put your Dr. Strange glove on and twist it back until that time when you were a kid and you were watching cartoons on TV. Cartoons are a great example for this because they're creative, they're outrageous, they're unusual, they're dangerous. I mean, poor Wile E. Coyote, God bless him, right? He's been demolished off the cliff more times than we can count. Any kind of odd or strange picture that you can combine two things in will help that idea poke through the background noise of all the distraction we were talking about earlier and help you remember it. After all, we remember moments in our lifetimes that poke through the background noise. We remember when we got married or when we graduated from college or high school or when our children were born. We remember these moments because they're special to the point that they pierce through the noise. Well, that is something that we're going to hack for our own personal use. That is a principle of the way our brain operates, that we can do a hack on it and use that for ourselves. So that's what we're going to do. In fact, let's do an example right now, just related to absent-mindedness, right? Absent-mindedness. Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I'm the only one who has never, who has forgotten where he put his cell phone or his keys. Where are my keys? Where are my, or where did I park? Where did I park at the shopping center or the airport or the hotel or whatever it may be? So let's take an example of a creative association that might help us remember where we parked. A lot of times we'll get out and we'll park at the Walmart or the shopping center or the mall or wherever we are. And we might look for the lamppost and we'll say, okay, I parked next to the lamp, the light in the parking lot, which is okay. It's better than nothing, but there's dozens of lights out there. And was that this time or was that last time that I parked by the light? So here's what, instead of just a bland association, we're going to make it a creative, outrageous association. We're going to say, I didn't park by the lamppost. When you get out of the car and you close the car and you lock the door, picture that instead you ran into the lamppost. In your head, imagine you crashed your car into the light. You didn't, hopefully. But if you imagine that you did, just for a moment, picture it in your mind, make it a cartoon, that's fine. But if you can see the steam rising and the crumpled hood and a few details, a flat tire or something, then when you finish and you walk out of the store, you will remember, where did I park? Oh yeah, I crashed into the lamppost. It's that kind of idea. We want to just not make just a connection, but a connection that has some unusual component or element. Something, the more ridiculous or naughty or extreme or unusual, the better. It might be that sometimes I forget where I put my phone. Or if you forget where you put your phone, it's because you put it down on the table and you weren't originally aware of where you put it. But as you put the phone down, you say, okay, I'm putting it down on the sofa table, which is the table behind the sofa in our living room, which that's good. Now I'm originally aware. Now I'm going to make a creative association to go with it and say, and I'm not just setting it down. As I set the phone down, a mouth like a Venus flytrap magically comes up out of the table and bites at my hand as I set my phone down. So it like chomps my phone down onto the table. Now I will remember where I put my phone because that ridiculous, absurd, childish, cartoonish picture in my mind will tell me. and it will last as long as I need it to last, and then it will go away. So those are the two principal characteristics, and I would wager that at the end of the program tonight, after all of the speeches, after the entire conference, you will still remember where I put my phone, and you will remember where I parked my car because of the pictures that have been placed in your mind as a result. Let's go on a little bit more, and we're going to talk about something called the Loci System. Let's stop the share for a moment. I'm going to go back to where I can talk to you. Okay, Loci, the Loci System, L-O-C-I, that is from the Latin word locus, L-O-C-U-S, which means place. It's where we get the word location. The Loci System is, if you've ever watched, did you ever watch Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch? Remember that show? It would show him going into his mind and sort of going through a memory palace and things like that. Well, that is the idea that we're going to exploit now. So for associating one thing to another, we're going to use a place. And I highly recommend that you use your home or your domicile. If it's an apartment, if it's a house, a duplex, whatever it is, you can picture in your mind the floor plan of your home. You know what it looks like when you walk in your front door. You see the front room, whatever it is, a foyer or entering room, or if you come in the back door, you might have like a utility closet or something. You can see it in your head. And this system, what we're going to do is associate items to the rooms in our house, and then sub-items to the individual objects in each room. So I'm going to ask the people who are watching this on Zoom to unmute, because I'm going to need some interactivity and to ask and answer some questions. So please, if you'll go ahead and unmute your mics while I talk about this. The Loci System was already old when it was first written about. It is based, as we said, on constructing a memory palace associating information to objects and locations. This means anything you can organize in outline format. Roman numeral 1, A, B, C, under each one of those is 1, 2, 3, under each one of those is bullet points. Anything you can organize in outline form, you can use this to remember. What could a room full of Toastmasters want to remember that could be organized in outline form? This is it. So we're going to start with like the king tactic for you, okay? This works by saying, let's say that I've got to give a speech. And we've all been there when the PowerPoint goes, just schmutz and it's in the garbage, it's gone, or the light goes off, or the projector dies, or something goes wrong. You dropped your index cards. This is the kind of system that can save you. So for those people who have their mics open, let's imagine I'm going to give a speech on a random topic. Something I don't know. What's a random topic? Curtis, are you there?
Yes, sir.
What's a random topic that I might want to give a speech about?
Recycling cigarette ashtrays.
Cigarette ashtray recycling. All right, that's pretty doggone specific, but let's go with it just to see if we can do it. So in my mind, I see myself walking up to my front door, but instead of my front door, which is a maroon door, I'm a Mississippi State guy, I know you Tennessee folks, but my son's probably going to go to Tennessee, so that's probably going to happen. But so it's maroon, but instead of that door, it's an ashtray. Maybe it's broken because we're going to throw it away and recycle it. But this is just to cue me that this is my ashtray speech. And when I walk in, I see a welcome mat, and there's a little table that has a lamp on it, and there's sort of a crochet little doily on the table that my wife's grandmother made, and then there's a cross stitch on the wall, and then there's stairs, and there's the different rooms. There's a music room, there's the dining room, straight ahead is the family room. So I can see this in my mind. But in that entry area, I've got a few different things that I can use to say, these are the outline points that I want to make when I introduce my speech. Maybe one of them is I want to talk about the materials that recyclable ashtrays are made of. So I might picture that welcome mat, and I might see that it is made of 4 different materials. It's made of clay, it's made of porcelain, it's made of metal, some kind of steel or aluminum, And so it's made of the different things. So when I step on different parts of it, it feels different to my feet. I can see that this strange welcome mat has metal spikes in one place and muddy clay in another and cracked porcelain in another. I can see that in my head. It's ridiculous and stupid. I will remember it. And then maybe I want to talk about someone who was influential in the developing the recycling your ashtray movement in America. And so that little cross stitch over on the wall, in my head, it's no longer a cross stitch of our family name. It may be a cross stitch of that guy. It may be a picture of that woman who started the whole thing. Whoever it is, I'm going to put them in the picture in my head. And maybe they're getting arrested, right? That's even better because now it's a ridiculous or more extreme image to have in my mind. So people get arrested for protesting. He was protesting people's failures to recycle their ashtrays. Okay, and then I have maybe different full Roman numeral topics that are going to go through the rest of my speech. Maybe that intro is number 1, and then Roman numeral number 2 is going to be all the reasons why recycling has to be done. And so that's my music room. So when I go into my music room, there's a sofa and a chair and a table and a piano and some other instruments and things on the wall. So all of my subpoints in that category, I can mentally associate with each of the items in that room. And when I'm ready to go from that over to modern organizations that support recycling ashtrays, I can go to my dining room and there's 2 china cabinets. There's a little serving trolley cart that my grandmother used to own. There's our dining room table. There's all kinds of plates and glasses and fancy stuff that my wife has in there. All of that's in my head. I can't maybe put it into words, but I know where it is. I know the stuff that's on top of the cabinet. All of those I can associate making those pictures with the different elements of that subsection. Then I can go to the family room. I can go upstairs. I can go to the basement. I can go to the yard. All of these places can become places where I can store information in my head. And then when it's time for me to give my speech, all I have to do is walk through my house. And in my mind's eye, everything I look at tells me the next point in my talk. So I don't have to have the PowerPoint. If the PowerPoint dies, then I still know where I'm going because I do know where the topics I'm going to teach you tonight. But if I drop my note cards or if something happens, technology decides to just go crazy on us, you can still deliver the value that you've been engaged to deliver to your audience. And that is a very empowering thing. Do you think it might make you a better speaker to have confidence that you're bulletproof with regard to technology? Yeah, that makes me feel more confident when I know that I can go out and deliver something, and even if the world is falling down around me, I can still deliver value. Yeah, that's empowering. So memory isn't just about being smart, it's also about being good. It's about being ready to deliver value. So, and by the way, even though this Loci system sounds very, it's Latin and it sounds sort of, little highfalutin, as we say, you already know about this. Because you remember when I said before how these systems were taught, they were part of the culture centuries and millennia ago, and we just kind of lost it. We don't really teach it anymore. You can find artifacts in our culture that prove that we used to do this all the time. And that is why if you've ever made an argument to someone you were disagreeing with, and you started your argument by saying, well, in the first place, in the first place, this is an artifact in our language that is directly derived from this memory system. So these systems are part of the way we used to do things, and there's evidence for that embedded in our language. I think that's pretty doggone cool. So that is the Loci system. So we've talked about being absent-minded and where did I park and where did I put my phone, and we've talked about a very powerful tool to remember any kind of information that you can put in outline form. Now, if you have students, if you have kids that are students in high school or college, maybe even middle school, you can see how this kind of system could be applied to learning other kinds of information as well. If you had to learn presidents or kings and queens or leaders in a certain time period and some kind of subject matter that went with each one of them, you can see how, well, this could be the Henry VIII room, and then this could be the Mary Queen of Scots room, and this could be the Elizabeth I room, and this could be the James the first and fourth room. And so you can see how you could go through the Tudors or the Plantagenets or something in your history class. You could apply this to that. You could apply it to chemistry. You could make rooms or objects for different elements and properties or compounds that you could make from them. So you could use anything that you can put in an outline format, group into clumps, or clump it into groups, whichever linguistic approach you want to take. You can use this system to remember it. So very powerful system. Next system, I like this system, the link system. So there's a picture of a chain. We're talking about a big heavy chain, like Marley and Scrooge, and they're dragging these big chains along. So any big chain. The link system, instead of connecting objects to something in your head like your visualization of the rooms of your home, now what we're going to do is connect objects from one object to the next. So this is an excellent technique for remembering items in a list. You are going to associate, like a link by link in a chain, each item to the next one, each item to the next one. And so when you're done, you can remember every item, because each item you remember tells you the next one, and then that tells you the next one, and then that tells you the next one. So let me tell you how I applied this. As you might imagine, as a performer, speaker, I work a lot of banquets, a lot of evenings, and I have my share of daytime stuff, but a lot of times I might be doing a program and I come home at night. And it is my habit. I've been married 25 years this year. This summer, I'll be 25 years married. And it is my habit to phone home, time permitting, and say I'm driving past the Publix, Walmart, Kroger, Ingles, whatever the thing is that I'm going past, and say, what do we need, right? I'm sure most of you have done this. You're trying to be nice to your significant other at home, and so you call and say, hey, would you need me to pick anything up at the store? And they're super relieved to hear that, because now they don't have to go. And so they tell you, yes, as a matter of fact, we need this, 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 and this. And you're like, perfect. And off you go into the store, and you get the first item or two, and then it hits you. And you have to take out your phone and make the call of shame. Back to the house. So here's what we're going to do. Let's stop the share. I would like to have all of my people who are on Zoom, and are certainly, if you're watching on YouTube, start commenting items that we need to pick up from the grocery store. Put it in the chat. And I'm just going to pick some that show up in the chat. Or if you want to hear somebody said milk. If somebody wants to, if you're on Zoom and you want to call something out, we can do that. But let's say milk is the first one. So in my mind, I'm going to get out of the car. I remember where I parked already because I crashed into the light post. But I'm going to go to the door. And when you first get to the door, let's say I'm at the Publix, and you get up to the door, and it's the Jedi. It's the Jedi door that you go to. The glass door opens up. It's still fun for me. I'm 50 and it's still fun. But you go up there, and now instead of glass doors, I've got to remember that I need milk. So instead of seeing glass doors open up, in my mind's eye, I am going to picture something outrageous and absurd. I'm going to picture two giant cow udders that are like curtains over the door, and when they open up, they just wobble open and closed. Okay, so when I walk in the door at Publix, the first thing I'm going to see is these wobbly cow udders. Milk is the first item on my list. Let's look at something else. Let me scroll back up. Peanut butter. So I've got to go from milk to peanut butter is the next thing. So let's say that I'm reaching up and I'm milking the milk and it goes into the bucket, and that is great. I milk, 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 and then all of a sudden, out comes a very ugly stream of peanut butter. And I'm sure it's painful for Elsie to go through this. And I'm just looking at this, it's really kind of disgusting, which is perfect. It's perfect to picture this disgusting thing. And maybe even the whole jar pops out. And it hurts, but now she's relieved because we've passed the blockage there, the obstruction. So we've got milk, and obviously we're going to remember the peanut butter. So next it says bread. Okay, well the boring way would be to imagine putting peanut butter on bread, right? That's what most of us would normally do. Oh yeah, we got peanut butter, we got to put bread because we spread peanut butter on the bread. That's not exciting enough. What I'm going to picture instead is that I open up the peanut butter jar and out comes a giant loaf of bread. Not a normal loaf, but like a really giant loaf of Wonder Bread, like a Joe-sized loaf of Wonder Bread, or you insert your brand here. So plastic bag and all just pops out like the snake coming out of the can, right? So it's this ridiculous picture, very clowny, got it. And then after bread, I see cooking oil. So I'm gonna open up the bread and I'm trying to do the twisty tie. And as I do it, I realize that stuff is getting all over my hands. And it's cooking oil and the slipperiness, and I pour it out. And instead of bread inside, it's all this gooey cooking oil, and it's all over the place, okay? And maybe there's some spray cans of it too, but it's really just the gooey, globby oil. It gets everywhere, and it's terrible. And let's do one more. We did bread. So I'm just going to scoot down to, dog food. So we've got to go from cooking oil to dog food. Well, I'm going to imagine in my mind's eye that I see a dog who has got a chef's hat on, standing at a stove with a skillet or a pan, and he's got the cooking oil, and he's pouring some cooking oil into the pan, and he's got some mushrooms and some other things, and maybe some dog food. Some dog biscuits are going to go, but the dog food is going to go in there. So I'm picturing the dog in costume cooking with the cooking oil. So those are a handful of ridiculous images. Now, it took me a long time to verbalize that to you, to explain how I was putting it together, but in practice, it takes 3 or 4 seconds to come up with a stupid picture. I mean, it takes some people even less time than that, right? Some people can do it involuntarily. But for most of us, in a few seconds, we can come up with a dumb picture in our heads. So now I know when I'm going to the grocery store, the first thing I need to buy, don't look at your notes, just walk up, the door's open, and you know you need milk. And you're milking the thing, and you know you need peanut butter. Then you open the peanut butter, and you know you need bread. And you try to take the twist tie off the bread, but you get all gooey with the cooking oil, so you know you need cooking oil. And then you see the dog cooking with the cooking oil, making dog food. Boom, you've got your whole list, and you're not going to forget. Interesting thing about the link system, it's sequential, but it works in either direction, which is great, because now if I know that I need dog food, I know that I needed dog food because I needed cooking oil. I needed cooking oil because I needed bread. I needed bread because I needed peanut butter. I needed peanut butter because of the cow. So you see how your brain, do you feel that little tingle in your mind where it's like your mind is just prompting you to get the next thing? I remember when I first experienced that in the backseat of that Chevy Impala. And in the backseat, it wasn't Impala, it was the Chevy Custom van. The Chevy Custom van. And I'm sitting there and I'm playing cards with my brother, and I'm always winning because we're playing gin. And I can remember every card that's been played. That's not even fair. He got very angry because he thought I was cheating. I'm like, it's not cheating, I just remember. It's an advantage. It's advantage play. So now you know how to never make the call of shame when you go back to the grocery store. Any other kind of list, you can also use this. Let me share it back to here. Share. So it works in either direction. Sequential will call in either direction. So this is very powerful, but it does have a limitation. If we made a really long list, and I asked you, okay, what was the 6th item on that list? You wouldn't know, because you would have to start at the top and count through. If it was the 16th item, for example, you would have to count and figure out your way, because you just know where it is in the sequence, but you don't know where it is in absolute value, right? You don't know number 4 is this, number 10 is that, number 14 is this. And so that's a weakness of the link system. To put it in an analogy that you're probably familiar with, you probably have seen, you remember 8-track tapes or cassette tapes, right? To do a cassette tape, or certainly an 8-track tape, you had to listen to it. You had to listen to it all the way through. The great thing about cassettes was at least you could fast forward. But cassette tapes, you could fast forward, but you still had to go through all of the tape to get to the piece of the song that you wanted. Same thing with computer tapes. If you had a VIC-20 or something, or an old style tape drive in a mainframe, you had to go through all of the tape and wind up till you got to the part of the tape you needed. But there were other types of technology on both sides of that, CDs or records, where you didn't have to listen to every song. You could drop the needle right on the piece of information that you wanted. You could go straight to what you wanted. So the technique that I'm going to teach you next is the memory technique version of direct access to the information that you want. It is called the PEG system. And you see the picture there is a picture of like a pegboard in your garage, or maybe your father or father-in-law's garage if they're more organized than you are. I'm not naming names. Not so good with the pegboard, but I can do it in my head. So we're going to talk about the pegboard. If you have a really organized person who's got a pegboard, not only have they got the stuff on the pegs, but they've got it drawn or outlined around it. So when it's gone, they know not just what's missing, but I mean, they can see exactly where and how and everything about it. So when something's there, they see it, they know where it is, and when it's gone, they know what's missing. That is super powerful. So how does the PEG system work? Well, there are different kinds of pegs. This is a technique for remembering items in any order. We're going to create like a mental pegboard, like a matrix in your mind that you already know half of it without even trying. I promise you already know at least half of it. So you could do some of this before I even told you. We're going to create the ridiculous picture between information and the item in your mind. And then you're going to be able to have random access directly to that information. So like a hard drive instead of tape drive, like a record player or a CD instead of an 8-track or a cassette. So we're going to go straight to the useful information that we want. So there are 2 kinds of pegs. Tonight, we're going to do the rhyming peg. On Tuesday of next week, I'm going to do the full version of this training. I'm doing a little bit of a condensed version for you tonight. I'm doing the full version of this training. If you're interested in some of the more advanced techniques, sign up for my training. I'll tell you how you can do that later. But for now, we're going to talk about the rhyming peg. The rhyming peg. So let's go back to this. So you already know from when you were a kid a rhyme called 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, shut the door, 5, 6, pick up sticks, 7, 8, lay them straight. Straight's not an object. So why don't we call it a gate? 8 rhymes with a gate and a fence. So 8 is a gate. 9, 10, a big fat hen. So we know 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 already. We've got a great mental picture that the number tells us. So we have pegs that we can use. And we're going to do other rhyming ones. For number 1, it's the sun. Number 3 is a tree. Number 5 is a hive, a beehive. Number 7 is heaven. So clouds and harps and stuff, right? Just cartoon heaven. And let's see, 9 is a glass of wine. You don't judge me, I don't judge you. Glass of wine, Pinot Noir perhaps. So now we have 10 random pictures that aren't really so random, but we know which one goes, we know which picture goes with each number. So now we can put literally anything onto this pegboard. So please unmute yourselves. And if you're on YouTube, go into the chat and just throw out a random object. How about someone who can speak? Is somebody there who's got their microphone off?
We're Toastmasters, and we can all speak.
Oh, very good. So
Look at us all jump at you.
I see Stacy's got her mic off. Hi, Stacy.
Hey, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing great. I really enjoyed your talk earlier about the relationships that you've developed in Toastmasters and how you started doing it to prove something to yourself and how you stayed with it because of the relationships you built. I can really relate to that. I thought that was a very well put. I'd like you just to name a random object, any object in your room or in your house or your yard or any object you can imagine. Just name a random thing.
Balloon.
A balloon. And what number from 1 to 10 should be a balloon?
8.
8 is a balloon. Balloon, a balloon. So imagine 8 is a gate. So imagine that I'm opening a gate, but as I open the gate, the wood pieces of the gate suddenly inflate with helium and the gate detaches and lifts me up into the sky. So the gate becomes a balloon that takes me away. That's a ridiculous picture. It's very fast, but it'll get the job done. And how about table topics messed ...
That's me.
Catherine?
Yep. Let's go with a patio swing and make it number 5.
Number 5 is a patio swing, and number 5 is a hive. So I'm picturing a giant beehive, the size of a house, and outside the little place where the bees go in and out of the beehive is a patio. And they're relaxing, having, a cigarette or whatever they're doing. I don't know what bees do to relax. I'm at a loss on that, but maybe they're playing shuffleboard, but some of them are sitting on the patio and I see the patio swing there. So that's just me, bees on a patio in a cartoon, like a 1960s vintage cartoon, I think. I've got that in my head. It's really good. And let's go with Nadia Marie. Hi there. I'm Joe. Please give me any random object in the whole wide world.
A mailbox.
A mailbox, and then a number from 1 to 10.
5.
We did 5 already, so let's get 1.
Oh, we did? Okay, you're right. 3.
3. Okay, so a mailbox at number 3. Number 3 is a tree. So in my head, I'm picturing all of the mailboxes in my neighborhood. They're so perfect. And they get to mine, and it's like a keyboard elf tree. And the flag is a whole other branch with red leaves that pops up. And it's not like a mailbox is in the tree. It's like the tree is the mailbox. There's the solid door of branches and leaves that opens up, and you put the objects in. And I can just see the mailman cursing himself because who is this guy and why does he have to have a mailbox like this? Because it's a tree. Okay, it's a stupid picture, but I can imagine there's a little bit of turmoil in that mail carrier's life because of my tree mailbox. It's really a pain. So that's good. And Curtis, I see you on there. Do you have any random object in the whole wide world?
A pencil.
A pencil. What number should be pencil? Number 1. Number 1 is the sun, and it's going to be a pencil. Let's say that the sun is really bright, and I could see the rays coming out, and they're all number 2 pencils, which that's pretty good. That's pretty good. It'll work. They're yellow pencils. Maybe you go out to look at them, and you look at the eclipse, and just as the moon moves in front of the sun, instead of the regular corona, you see all of these pencils going off in different directions. That would be earth-shattering. And maybe you get your eye put out, not because of the ultraviolet rays, but because the pencil stabbed you. The sun pencil ray stabbed you. So that'll do. It's not the best image I've done in my life, but it'll work for the example. And let's do one more. Dory Nolan. Hi, Dory Nolan. Can you unmute? Are you there?
I am here.
Hi, Dory. I'm Joe. Nice to meet you. Can you name any random object in the whole wide world?
Any random object.
Yeah.
Um,
Something in your pocket or on your desk or in your kitchen or on the driveway or anything.
a tissue.
A tissue. Ooh, like Kleenex, like a facial
Yeah.
tissue.
Yeah.
And then what number should it be? We've got several that are still available. 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10.
Let's go with number 6.
Number 6. And it's going to be a tissue. Okay, 6 is sticks, like pickup sticks or twigs. So
Okay.
imagine that you're trying to start a fire by rubbing 2 Kleenex together. That's absurd. You're not going to get very far, but it'll work. It'll work. It's going to be a very frustrating camping trip to try to do that. So now let's just stop there. We won't fill in all 10 of these. But without looking, I'm going to block the screen. Let's do, what's number 10? Number 10 is a big fat hen, and I know that we don't have a picture for a big fat hen. So I know number 10 is blank. Number 9 is wine. I know that is blank. Number 8 is a gate. What's the gate?
Balloon.
The balloon. You know it without looking. You probably didn't even have to write it down, but now you know what's number 8. You know what number 7 is, nothing. Number 6 is the sticks, which is the Kleenex, it's the tissue. Number 5 is a hive. You don't have to look, stop looking. Number 5 is a hive, it's the patio swing.
Patio swing.
It's those bees, those silly bees out there in the swing. Number 4 is a door, we didn't do anything. Number 3 is a tree, mailman is upset at the mailbox. 2 is a shoe, nothing. 1 is the sun, pencil. So not only do we know the information that we put in, we know that we're looking at the empty spots on the pegboard. We still know what hasn't been used. That's really powerful. That's very effective if you're trying to, for example, play cards. Not that any of you need to do that, but you would know what cards have been played. If you can check them off in your head, you know what's been used, you know what's not been used. This isn't the best system to do that with, but it would work. The other thing you can do with this is, you can do them frontward and backward. You can do just the evens. You can do just the odds. You can just do multiples of 3. You can just do prime numbers. You don't have to go item by item to get to them. You still know all of the stuff just cold, just randomly, you know where it is. So can I tell you how many pop quizzes I crammed for, throwing stuff onto lists of 10 or 15 or 20 in my high school years? Many. Your kids could do the same. You could do the same. You could remember people on teams. You could remember people on committees that you're going to have to interact with, that are trying to hire you. You're trying to get hired by their conference. You can remember a variety of information. In a moment, we're going to talk about even better ways to remember people and their names. But this can let you group people or objects or items or any kind of information into a list that you can access randomly. So it's like having a hard drive in your brain. So this is spectacular. I'm running quickly to the end. So let me just sort of bring this in for a landing, okay? Let's go to share. Back to the peg system. So we did the rhyming peg. There is such a thing as a phonetic peg, and that is in the advanced course, where you get to numbers. Instead of rhyming for this, the digits correspond to sounds, and that lets you convert digits and numbers into sounds and then therefore words. So you take an abstract thing like a number, convert it to a concrete image. You can remember PIN numbers, phone numbers, addresses, dates, appointments, playing cards, pi to a billion digits or whatever it is that you want to do with your life, I don't know. And you can create an infinite number of peg images based on the digits in a number. 999 is BBB, bibbidi bobbidi boo or something. You can convert, you can make words. Bubba boy is 999. So you could make it any kind of picture out of any kind of number. So that is very powerful, and you can use that to remember calendars, know what day of the week a certain date and a certain year falls on. pretty darn quickly. That's very good. This is the one. Oh, if you do any talks on remembering names, any talks on memory, remembering names, this is the topic most people want to talk about. I don't have a book to sell you. I have my course. If you want to take my course, I'll go into detail on this. But everybody watching, I'm just going to send you all the slides from tonight. It's just for free. That's fine. If you like what I do, go on my website and buy a ticket to my show. I'm performing a magic and mentalism show right here next Saturday night. You know, if you want to do that instead of buying a book or something, that's great. For remembering names, there are a lot of common things that you've heard. Repeat the name, all of those things. All of those are true. I have an additional step that helps me lock it in. In fact, I've done magic for a company where the first time they hired me, they had about 400 people at the party, and I was doing walk around magic. And at the end of the night, I stood by the door and said goodnight to 300 of them by name as they left. I didn't get 100, all 400 of them. So I was 75% on the night. But out of 400, that's pretty doggone good. Do you think that makes an impact when you remember people's names in large groups? I did a corporate Christmas party about 8 years ago, remembered everybody's name in the room. There was 45 of them. And I said goodnight to them by name at the end of my show. They called me again. They want people remember that. It is high impact. Any kind of sales, any kind of presentation, any kind of interacting and networking, very powerful. I always ask a question. That's how I'm originally aware of the name, is I know I'm almost always going to ask a question about the person's name. I'll ask how it's spelled. I'll ask if it's derived from Russian or Ukrainian or French or Italian or Spanish or whatever. I'll ask a question about the derivation. I will look for commonalities between that name and people that I know, like, admire, and maybe make a comment on that. Then you have also heard about repetition, to repeat somebody's name. Don't do it like a robot. If you meet someone named Ulysses, I've got a Ulysses S. Grant biography over there, that's why I see it. Don't say, oh, hi, Ulysses. It's great to meet you, Ulysses. So, Ulysses, what do you do for a living? It's just, it looks like you're trying too hard. That's not conversational, but you want to use it naturally in conversation. And then here's what I do. In my mind, I picture myself writing that person's name with a very good pen on very good paper. I just imagine the sensory experience of scratching that person's name on paper in cursive as I am talking with them. And that extra step really helps me lock it in, and it will raise your effectiveness. There are other techniques that we can talk about. You'll see some more elaborate techniques in the document that I will be happy to share with you if you email me. So for more information, we're getting close to the end, but I want to leave 5 minutes, if possible, for questions. The Memory Book by Harry Lorraine and Jerry Lucas. Get it on Amazon. You can get a used copy for less than $5, probably. Paperback version, fly all over the place all the time. You can email me at this email address, and I will email you all of these slides and the little PDF I wrote on name memory. Now, a lot of speakers on memory don't like it that I'm giving away the name memory thing, because that's the thing that we sell. Well, it's not a whole book. It's just a little short treatise on how I do it. I'm going to give it to you, but maybe you'll take my course, or maybe you'll come to one of my shows. Maybe you'll tell somebody else at another conference where I can speak, and then it all works out in the end. So here's what I'd love for you to do. Since you're at your computer, like my page and my Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn, that's fine. You can follow my Instagram. You'll see pictures of me and places I used to go, and people in my family and things like that. And at the end, turnermagic.com/ticket is where you
Oh my gosh, Emily, you scared the crap out of me.
Hello. And so you can get tickets there online for my upcoming virtual magic and mentalism programs, or for the memory seminar that's coming up Tuesday, which is this information, plus the mnemonics, plus a little the phonetics, plus a little bit more on the memory details for names. So that's very good. It's the professional edition. If I can leave you with one idea, it's this. Memory techniques are not about batting 1,000. You don't have to have a perfect memory. But if your memory is 25% better tomorrow than it was today, Think of that's a big productivity increase. If you forget fewer things or you forget things less often, that is time that comes back into things that you can do constructively, productively to advance your career, to build your relationships. If you don't remember everybody's name at a networking event, but you remember 5 people's names, 10 people's names out of 100, you're way, way above the normal crowd. You will stand out by having just a little bit of fun and experience using these techniques. So don't think that you have to be perfect at it. I'm not perfect at it. Some people, maybe they don't. That's not what this is about. This is about improving from where you are, improving your average. So that is the end of my formal presentation. I'm going to stop the share and go back. Does anyone, oh, let's say this. Do you remember where I parked? Just for fun, you remember I parked, I smashed in a light post. You probably still know where my phone is.
Mm-hmm.
On the sofa table, because the mouth came back up and got you. What did I have to get at the grocery store?
Milk.
I had to get milk and peanut butter and
Bread.
Cooking oil.
cooking oil.
And
Yeah.
dog food.
And what was number 7?
Dog,
Dog food.
7 on the list is
balloon. Oh no.
nothing.
You didn't have a 7.
There's no 7. But what's number 6? 6 is sticks.
Tissue paper.
It was Kleenex, I think we said. So your brain can do this. Don't tell yourself that you can or it's too complicated. Pick one technique. What was the speech I had to give? Recycling ashtrays. And I remember there were four components. It was clay and porcelain and metal. So you can see, and the picture of the person who got arrested, all of this stuff floods back into your mind because these techniques are a hack for the way your mind remembers important things. And we're just putting it to use for ourselves. Any questions, comments, or criticisms? I can take it. What you got?
This is Dean. I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you performed at the House of Cards in Nashville?
I have indeed. I was at the House of Cards in Nashville in October of 18, earlier in their opening, not the first month or first year, but early on. And then I haven't been back recently, but the manager there's name is Joey Martinez, and we're talking. So when people can go places again and stuff like that, I'll be back, and I would love to entertain you at the House of Cards in Nashville. For those of you who don't know, the House of Cards in Nashville is a restaurant and performing venue, magic themed, kind of like the Magic Castle in Los Angeles, but not really a private club like the one in Hollywood. This was one you can call up and make a reservation, see a show, have dinner. It's fantastic. Other questions, comments, concerns? All right.
I noticed that someone asked online, is remembering song lyrics the same?
I come from a musical theater background, and yes, you can apply this to song lyrics. What I normally do is take a key word in the first lyric of the stanza, and you can do this for church music. If your choir director doesn't want you to, if you have to memorize stuff or whatever, I will take the key word in the first line of each verse or stanza, and then link that to the next one in my head. And that, you don't have to remember every single word. Most of us, once we kind of are familiar with the song, if we just get that nudge, the rest of it comes filling back in. If you get me started, if you've played that game, if you've heard a song and you don't know what it is, and finally it clicks and then suddenly you can sing it. It's that same, your mind, once you kind of make that connection, the rest of the information just comes flooding back. So that is one way to do it, is doing links from stanza to stanza. You could also use a peg system, but I just think it's one more step. That in real time of singing, I wouldn't want to be decoding what rhymes. I'd probably want to go directly to the next thing. So